Okay, so I'll read through a few verses. This is a very famous incident, but when you read it in the verses, so then it's they pay attention to the words, and there are things that need to be discussed. What does it say? You have mincha at 2:45. Is that what you do?
No. We usually have at 3:45, but we don't have a minyan. So.
3:45. I meant 3:45.
Yeah.
Oh, but you don't have a minyan, right? So you didn't, Okay, this is where Abraham first comes to the land of Israel because he was told to go there by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then immediately it says there was a famine in the land, and Avram descended to Egypt to sojourn there, meaning temporarily. He wasn't going there to stay. He wasn't changing his residence, but there was a famine in the land of Israel. For the famine was severe in the land. And it occurred as he was about to enter Egypt. He said to his wife Sarai, "See, now I have known that you are a woman of beautiful appearance. And it shall occur when the Egyptians will see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, and you they will let live. Please say that you are my sister." We're on page 57. "That it may go well with me for your sake, and that I may live on account of you." So now let's go back through it piece by piece and see what occurs to you, what you think of. There was a famine in the land, and Avram descended to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. Does that provoke any thoughts in your mind that could be asked?
I mean, Hashem sent Avram there. He's like, "Hey, you're going to have a great place there. Go from where you are. You're comfortable. You have your home place. Go to a faraway land you've never seen before." Avram shows up there, and he's like, "There's a famine here. Not exactly the promised land was made out to be."
So first of all, you're putting this together with previous material. It's true. He was living someplace else. God told him, "Over here you can't be successful. Go to the place that I want you to be in. There you'll be successful. You'll have children. You'll become a great nation, and so forth and so on." He gets there, and there's a famine. Mm-hmm. So that one needs to understand. The Torah is telling us Abraham's history. So you're right. There's got to be something here that is related to who he is and what he's doing and what his plans are and what his future is. And the commentators do say that this was a test. The test to see whether he would have doubts about God's providence. Maybe he's not in control of everything, or maybe he changed his mind on my future, or what will Abraham think? Well, how will he take it? So that fact tells you a little bit about life. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes puts us in circumstances where we don't really understand. And he does that to, first of all, provoke us. How will you think about it? And then I think take a step back and say, let's see, this is how I'm thinking about it. Is that an appropriate way to think about it? Or isn't it an appropriate way to think about it? That's one observation. I think that's absolutely right. Is there another question that could be raised here? Yeah.
Why he didn't pray to God in order to stop the famine when he went to Egypt?
Okay, why didn't he deal with it in the land of Israel itself?
Yes.
Pray to God to stop it. Why did he take the choice of moving? Could you support that by maybe an observation about normal behavior and the facts in this case? Yeah.
Observation in the pasuk itself, it mentions the fact that there was a famine twice. It says there was a famine in the land, and then it says the famine was severe.
Right.
So maybe Abraham could have done something if it was a normal famine, but it seems like this was a severe and special famine.
Okay, so you hear what he's saying. Since it says it twice, the second time stresses the severity.
Torah never mentions anything twice without a reason.
Correct, 100%. Torah never mentions anything once without a reason.
True that.
But certainly twice. It's certainly mentioning twice without a reason. 100%. Very good. Now, could you ask a kind of background question to give perspective on this? Did everybody leave the land
Oh,
because of the famine? Was it just empty of people because nobody had anything to live on? We don't know, but if everybody left and there was nothing there to live on, then you could understand why he left, because otherwise he wouldn't survive. If it's less than that, if you could survive there, then we have to ask what question? Is what he did right or wrong? Our great people make mistakes. Our book is very open about the mistakes that people make. God criticizes them for the mistakes that they make, either on the spot or later. As a matter of fact, the commentators are split. Some say that what he did was quite reasonable in the circumstances. The Ramban criticizes him very severely. And he criticizes him doubly severely because he says, number one, God told you this is your place, you should have stayed there. And number two, you took your wife, the tzadekis, the righteous woman, and put her in danger. So he comes down on Abraham doubly. So, but that's something that has to be taken into consideration. Given the questions you started with, God told him this is the place where you're supposed to be, and now he's not going to be there. You have to ask whether he did the right thing or not. That's an important thing, something you look up in background or in Midrashim or in the commentators. You got a question?
I was going to say that, other people would stay there because they were settled, so they had storages where they could survive. He just traveled there. He didn't have anything. He just left everything. So he couldn't, so he had to move.
Oh, so that's a very interesting observation. Those who were there and have been there for generations may have had resources, and he doesn't have. Now, to back up what you say, although it's not in the text, but the oral tradition says that he was so poor when he went down to Egypt that on the way, when he stayed and took lodging, he had to tell the people, I need credit because I haven't got any money. So, and that plays a role in the upcoming story. So I think that supports your suggestion that he may have been different from everybody else. I think that's a very good point. Okay, we're together so far? No. Now, the next sentence. It occurred as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife, Sarai, see now, I have known that you are a woman of beautiful appearance. What? Even that much, I think, ought to provoke some kind of questioning.
You just saw it now?
It sounds like the English is a little ambiguous, and the Hebrew also is ambiguous, because it's a past tense verb in Hebrew. Then if he's saying about the past, it means this is not now. I've known it for a while. I have known in English. We don't speak that way, but that could be the implication. But then the question will be, why are you saying it? Did you never say it before? If this was something which he knew before and something which they had talked about, he wouldn't have to mention it this way. So at the very least, it seems like it wasn't a matter of common conversation between them. So some of the commentators say, I'm not blind. Some say he never looked. Okay, you could say that. Some say, I'm not blind. I know what you look like, but it has never been relevant before to talk about this. Now has come a time where your beauty is a matter that requires decision, requires action, and I'll explain to you why. So this is his background to the explanation he's going to give.
But why is the word see now? To see. When I say something, you hear. You see.
Well, because he's referring to her, like, see now.
Can she see her beauty?
No, he's not telling you to see with our eyes. In English, we say to a person, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I could say that even with my eyes closed. I don't see it with my retina.
Yeah, but like Torah doesn't work the same way English works, right? It uses words.
No, but it's not an objection to say that see has to, in Hebrew, seeing can mean intellectual understanding.
Because we say Shema Israel Hashem.
We say that, but in Hazinu we say Ru'u, that I'm the only one. You should be able to see it. So to see in Hebrew, and Rambam talks about this, and see in Hebrew can also mean to intellectually understand. So he's asking her to realize something. It's a good remark, but that's what he's doing. He has to realize something. Okay, so you're beautiful, and it shall occur when the Egyptians will see you, they will say, this is his wife. That seems pretty natural, normal. A man and a woman traveling together, perhaps they appear to be of similar age, and they'll take it for granted that they're married. Then they will kill me, but you they will let live. Why would they do that?
Because they want her.
Because they want her. And they figure if they're married, the husband's never going to agree. So this isn't the last time this happens to Abraham. And apparently, Egypt was a main economic and military center, and he's a stranger and not even part of the culture. He's traveling. He's completely defenseless. So he says, that's what's likely to happen. So he makes the following proposition in 13. Please say that you're my sister, that it may go well with me for your sake, and that I may live on account of you. What do you hear here that needs some kind of thought or explanation? Yeah.
So one, he is having her a part of his lie, which is something that could be called to question his character, seeing as he is one of our forefathers, and we're saying, oh, he's coming up with lies. Now, in his defense, he was using it to ensure that he stayed alive, but couldn't he have come up with a better idea other than, oh yeah, she's my sister?
Okay, let me repeat over what you're saying, because you said several things. First of all, he's asking her to confirm the lie he's about to tell. And we should question when someone like Abraham is involved in telling a lie.
Was there really no other option?
So one thing at a time. You said a few things. I just want to get them one at a time. So in other words, when they're telling a lie, that's something which, as the philosophers say, prima facie, it's doing something that's wrong, it's something that's immoral. So you have to question why he did it. You could say that he's doing it in order to stay alive. The further question then is there nothing else that he could have done to be able to stay alive? Because if there was something else he could have done without lying, then presumably he shouldn't have lied. Now, we don't know all the circumstances. It's hard for us to know what the alternatives would be, but that's the right way to analyze it. That's the right type of question to ask. Good, that's one thing. What else about the words in the verse? There's a few other things that need help. Yeah.
What does it mean for her sake?
Yeah. They're going to treat me well for her sake. What would that mean? And here Rashi says, they'll give me gifts. And at the bottom of the page, it says that's exactly what happened. Why? Because if they're brother and sister, how are the people going to react?
Zona.
Say again?
With honor to him.
First of all, they don't have to kill him to get her. She's not married. Second of all, especially in those days, and even to a certain extent today, if brother and sister are traveling together, if you want to make a proposition to the sister, you'll have to clear it with the brother. You'll have to get the brother on your side. She's not going to, rebel against her brother. He's her protector. So, therefore, they will give him gifts in order to get him to agree. Okay, I'll come back to this in a moment. It's fine. That's what he's hoping for. What is it? His strategy is to present themselves as brother and sister, and when they're attracted to her, to say, "Well, come, gentlemen, let's talk about a deal," and then put it off and negotiate and get competition, and and that way have a strategy. Okay?
Why specifically sister? Why not daughter?
Oh, because they were too similar in age for that.
I mean, they were 10 years apart.
Then, but like who knows? Like they were both 70, 80. Who knows how to?
I don't know. Maybe she. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
So
I agree with you.
if she
Father and daughter would be might be even better for that.
So that's
It just might not be believable that given their ages. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Yeah, maybe it would have been better. I have to figure out why they wouldn't do it. Now he says, so it'll go well for me. I'll get gifts, and I'll live. Something strike you about the order there? Let's see. I want you to lie. I want you to say you're my sister. Why do you want me to lie? I'll tell you, there's two things really. One is because if you lie like this, I'll get gifts. And then there's another one. Let me think. There was another one. Oh, yeah, right. And I'll stay alive. I mean, the order is a little funny, no?
Also, I think he was prioritizing Sarah's life, and that.
Oh, I'll come to that. I'll come to that. 1 second. That's a step ahead. Let's just think here now. When you have a list, again, what did I do? I made it a parody. He says, I want to accomplish two things by your lying and confirming my lie. Right? One is that I'll get gifts, and the other is that I'll stay alive. And it's very funny that he puts getting the gifts before staying alive. That's only funny, odd, if it's a certain kind of list. But there are other lists for which it wouldn't be odd at all. It's only funny if he wants two things. What do you want for your birthday? Well, I want a toothbrush and a bicycle. In that order? Can you get a toothbrush and leave out the bicycle? You know? Right. If you have unrelated items and you want both of them, presumably you put the most important one first. But suppose they're related. Suppose they aren't unrelated. In particular, suppose one is a means to the other. Here's what I want, Sarah. I want to stay alive. How are we going to do it? So here's my plan. We'll say we're brother and sister, and then they will try to get my agreement to your marrying one of them, and they'll give me gifts in order to get my agreement, and through that, because of that, I will stay alive. Then it's not a funny list at all. It's means to ends.
He's describing the order of process that it will happen.
That's right. The order of process in which it will happen, not just the order of importance of disconnected items. So given that that's what's going on, the order here is very good. Right? Okay, now I want you to sort of put yourself in Abraham's place, put yourself in Sarah's place. Mm-hmm. Think about this conversation and ask whether there isn't something a little slanted in the conversation. It's something that you might have expected to be there is left out.
Sarah's response.
Okay, it's true. It doesn't tell her what her response is, but it's clear that I guess if she hadn't agreed, he would have turned around and gone back. He wouldn't have risked it. We do assume that she did agree, but there's something else here. Look at what he's saying. Look at how he's describing the situation and describing the response. Isn't there something missing here? If I were in the situation of Abraham, I wouldn't have said what he said. I would have said it differently. I would have added something else. How's he painting this? Sarah, please?
Oh.
Please what? Do me a favor. Please do me a favor. I'm asking you to do something for me.
Let me live, and you're going to get taken by a bunch of Egyptians while I get gifts.
While I what?
While I get gifts, you're going to be taken by a bunch of Egyptians, and they're not going to be together anymore. It's not a fully thought out plan.
I don't think so. I think, after all, the alternative that he described was, if we say we're husband and wife, you're going to be taken by them.
Yes.
Because you're going to kill me, right? So
what he's describing, though, is one in which she cannot act as his wife anymore because a bunch of Egyptians will have.
Yeah,
Kind of
but okay.
hole in the plan.
Let's suppose the plan succeeds. The plan, and I described it as buying time by their negotiating with him, and he'll make sure there's competition between them, and by that time he'll be able to buy time. Okay? Who's going to benefit from this plan? Okay, Avram will benefit. Will Sarah benefit?
Will benefit.
I mean, as long as they're negotiating, she's not being taken anybody because he hasn't given his agreement yet. So isn't this a plan designed to benefit both of them?
Yes, in the long term.
Right. So I think it's noteworthy that he leaves out the part that his plan is going to save her. If I were Abraham, I would have said, here's my plan, Sarah, a plan to save both of us. If they kill me, they're going to take you into a harem. You're not going to like that. We're both in danger. I'm in danger of dying, and you're in danger of being taken into an Egyptian harem. Let's do the following to save both of us. We'll say we're brother and sister. They'll want to get my agreement to marrying you. They'll give me gifts for that sake, for that purpose. There'll be negotiations. And in the meantime, I'll be alive, and you won't be taken into a harem. I think it would have been more simplistically natural to present it in such a way that it's clear that he's doing something for both of them. He leaves out that part. He makes it sound like, I have a problem. I have a problem. And by the way, what does he say? If we say we're brother and husband and wife, they'll kill me and they'll keep you alive. He doesn't say they'll take her into a harem. All he says is they'll kill me and keep you alive, making it sound like I'm the only one in danger. And therefore I'm asking you to do me a favor to help save me.
Is it because she was more righteous than him in that moment, and he knew that she would have protection from Hashem?
No.
She will survive anyway.
No, I don't think so. I think the point here is this. Sometimes when you do someone a favor, that creates a certain indebtedness on the recipient of the favor. And sometimes, in order that the other person shouldn't feel indebted to you, you disguise the favor. There's a fellow in Manchester, England, very wealthy, and he likes to help people who are in distress and financial distress. And one of his techniques is, I don't know how widely it's known. I happen to know someone who's related to him, so I know it. But I don't know if it's known in the. He'll call up a couple and he'll say, "I'm buying a new refrigerator, and my old refrigerator is only 18 months old and has a 5-year warranty, and I'm wondering whether you could use a refrigerator." Their refrigerator is 6 years old and it breaks down every 3 weeks and so forth and so on, and he knows that because he's gotten reports. And they think, well, he doesn't need it anyway. He's buying a new one. He's wealthy. He buys new ones every 18 months. So, wow, that's wonderful for us. But it doesn't mean anything to him because he's getting rid of it anyway. Right? No, he isn't. That's just a story. So they won't feel they owe him something. He's saying, I don't need it. I'm not going to use it anymore. And therefore, but it isn't true. It isn't true. So he buys it, brings it to his house, takes it out of the packing, puts it in another packing, puts it on a truck, and says it to them. Because he doesn't want them to feel indebted to him. I can tell you something about that you can read about in history books. There was a time when if A asked B for a favor, B would respond, happy to oblige. Did you ever hear those words? Mm-hmm. To oblige means to create an obligation in you. When B does A the favor, by doing the favor, B creates in A an obligation. Happy to oblige. That's quite a deep thing to say. So here Abraham says, I'm going to do something, and it'll be good for both of us, but I'm not going to paint it as doing something for her, because I don't want to obligate her in gratitude to me. I think this is an exquisite thing to do in a relationship. I think it's exquisitely sensitive things to do. Are we together so far?
Yes.
Now I want to show you that Sarah did exactly the same thing for Abraham later. she returned it, which means that it's a two-sided, it's a double-sided element in their relationship. Take a look at page 71. So I'll read through for you just the first two verses of chapter 16 and see if you can pull the idea out on your own. There are other things here as well, but whatever you say it will be interesting. Now Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no children. She had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Avram, "See now, Hashem has restrained me from bearing. Consort, which means to live together, now with my maidservant. Perhaps I will be built up through her." What do you see here?
He had no children through her, and she allowed him to. She gave him his maidservant in order so he can have children, and she will be built through her. But like she made it look like it's a favor to her, even so it was a favor to him.
She made it look like it was a favor to her, even though it was a favor to him, because the introduction is how she saw it. It doesn't say she was barren. It doesn't say she didn't have children to suckle and raise and grandchildren to play with. No, she had borne him no children. She saw herself as someone who would provide him with another generation. Her dedication was to him and only to him. But when she speaks to Avram about the plan, she makes it sound like he's doing it for her. I'm a barren woman. Do something to help me have children. I have this plan. I think this will help. Do this for me. It's exactly the same dynamic. Really, she wants to do for him, but she doesn't want him to feel that she's making a sacrifice for him. She's his wife. She's suggesting that he take another wife. That's not a small thing. She has reason to think, and it turns out that this is wrong, because it doesn't work. She has reason to think that this might help, and she's willing to do it in order to give him a child. But if she would say to him, "Listen, Avram, you know I love you, and you know that I'm dedicated to you, and you know that I want you to have a child. In this way you could have a child," then she's acting for him. That creates an obligation of gratitude on him to her. She doesn't put it that way. She puts it as, "I'm a woman and I have no children." As in the next 2 generations later, Rachel says to Jacob, "Give me children or I'm going to die." That's children for me. Here, at least that's what it says. Here, she says, "I'll be built up," but what she wants is to provide him with a child. So you see that this comes from, it comes from both sides the same way. Are we together so far?
Yes.
Now, Rav Dessler has a whole essay on this, essay on loving kindness, and one very deep point that he makes there, he talks about the difference between giving and taking, and he says these are basic dynamics in the soul, and giving is the source of all goodness, and taking is the source of all evil, and the goal is for everything that everybody does to be giving.
But if you don't have a receiver or someone taking, then there can't be a giver.
Okay, so that's the obvious, immediate logical objection. Everybody can't be just giving, right? Because who are they giving to? Now you, in your vocabulary, already got to the answer because you used 2 different words and you hesitated between them, the taking or the receiving. And this is exactly what Rav Dessler says. There's a difference between taking and receiving. And the difference is that receiving can itself be a way of giving. Because people need to give. Giving provides a sense of self-worth. It provides self-esteem. And not only psychologically, it's true. If I give something to you, if I benefit you in some way, if I improve your life in some way, then I am valuable because I made your life better. So, in an older form of English, we used to say, everybody needs to be needed. Everybody needs to be needed. So when you receive from someone, you're giving that person the sense of being needed. So in receiving, you can be giving. And that way, both sides can be giving. Here's an example. I wrote an article about this in a magazine, which is now, thank God, defunct, called Tikkun Magazine, about self-esteem. Let's suppose a person has low self-esteem, doesn't think of himself as worthwhile, valuable, worthy in any way. Suppose you go to that person and you ask him for advice. I understand that you spent 3 weeks in Italy. I've never been there and I'm going. Can you tell me about it? Can you give me some suggestions where to go? Can you give me some advice as to how to conduct myself in Italy? What are you saying about him to him when you ask him for advice?
You're trusting him enough.
You're trusting him. You think he has knowledge and experience. You think that he's capable of describing it in a way that will help you. You think that he's generous enough to help you. That's not bad. You're really building him up, aren't you? You're building him up by asking him to help you. I did some research before I wrote this article on websites all over the world about self-esteem. Not a single one said that you build self-esteem by getting the person to help others. They all said, protect him, don't criticize him, don't embarrass him in public, and so forth and so on. Give him very simple tasks so that he can succeed. They didn't say a single thing about asking him to help others. There was an article in a magazine called Jewish Action, it's a Torah magazine, maybe 5 years ago. A woman was writing about her preparations for Pesach, and she said, I had my 7-year-old do the bookcases. I told him to take down all the books, and clean the bookcases, and polish the bookcases, and dust the books, and put them back. And he did, with a ladder, the whole thing. At the Seder, with the 23 people, she said, look at the bookcases. Yankee did that. How does Yankee feel? Feels like $1 million. I made the bookcases beautiful for Pesach. I did it to something that everybody will enjoy. He feels like $1 million. That's how you build up a person's self-esteem. So sometimes, if you know the person needs self-esteem, you can ask the person for help. That person will be giving you help, and you're giving to the person self-esteem. You're both giving. And this is crucial because there are psychological traps that people fall into. I'll just give you a brutal example of it. I was in Houston, and a psychiatrist asked to see me. And I thought, the psychiatrist wants to see the rabbi, something's wrong. That's not usually going in that direction. He said to me, I have a problem. I've been in relationships, and in every case, the other person left me. And I want you to know, Rabbi, I'm very generous. First of all, I'm wealthy. I'm generous with my money, but with my time, and we spend time together, and I care about the other person's feelings. We do things together, and every time the other person left me. What's wrong? Why is there a problem? And I said to him, what did the others do for you? Oh, Rabbi, he said, I'm a giver, not a taker. I'm a giver. I would never ask them to do something for me. So I said, congratulations. They felt like a fifth wheel. They felt useless. Nobody wants to feel useless. Nobody wants to feel like there's no importance. People want to feel like they're making a contribution. You made a tragic mistake. In Rav Dessler's terms, you didn't understand the difference between receiving and taking. Where in receiving, you could be giving to the other party. I don't think I convinced him. He's a psychiatrist, you know. These guys are supposed to be well-trained, well-educated, and smart. If only it were so. And that's exactly what's going on here between Abraham and Sarah. That they are giving in a way that's disguised as receiving. And They're receiving in a way. They're disguising their giving as by painting it as receiving. But the giving is there. The giving is there without a doubt. Now you could ask me, well, we're talking about Avraham and Sarah. Didn't each one appreciate what the other one was doing? It's not a question of fooling the other one. Yeah, but look at the way the other one is treating me. Look at how the other one wants to benefit me. So the gesture is itself something which is definitely worthwhile. Are we together so far?
Yeah.
Okay, now you talked about lying. So I want to show you, since we have a little time left over, I want to show you a couple of places where lying does play a role. Take a look on page 81. Here also, you have to read carefully. So, this is the three angels that come to visit Abraham. And one of the things that happens, on verse 10 at the top of the page, one of the angels says to Abraham in a loud voice, I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Okay, Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well on in years. The manner of women had ceased to be with Sarah. She wasn't menstruating anymore. She'd been through menopause. And Sarah laughed within herself and said, after I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin? And my husband is old. Okay, that's her speech. 2 points. After I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin? And my husband is old. Then Hashem said to Abraham, why is it that Sarah laughed, saying, now here's Hashem's rendering of what Sarah said. Shall I in truth bear a child, though I have aged? Is that what Sarah said? Is that exactly what Sarah said? Sarah said two things. After I withered, after I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin? That's a poetical way of saying I'm too old. And then she added, my husband's too old. Because Baruch Hu says to Abraham, why did she complain saying she's too old? Because Baruch Hu left out that she said, Abraham is too old. Now, in order to frame my question, let me point out to you that there are two types of omissions. When you quote someone and omit part of what he said, there are two types of omissions. One is innocent and does not distort what you report, and sometimes, if you leave something out, it's not innocent and it does distort what you report. Let's take the State of the Union address. What did Biden say about Nebraska? Oh, he said Nebraska is a wonderful state and it's going to be very productive and he's going to invest in Nebraska. That's what he said. I doesn't say what Biden said about Gaza or what he said about Los Angeles. Yeah, but he was asked about what he said about Nebraska, and he told him what he said about Nebraska. But now he says, what did Biden say about Gaza? He said, and the report is, Biden says no munitions for Gaza. No munitions for Gaza. Well, that's not quite right. What he said is, if he goes into Rafah, there'll be no munitions for Gaza. He said there'll be no munitions for Gaza under any conditions. He made a condition. There, if you leave out the condition, you're distorting what you're saying. You're not reporting it fairly. Okay? So there are two types of omissions. An omission that doesn't distort, and an omission that does distort. What kind of omission is this? When the Kodesh Baruch Hu does not distort, you say. Well, let me tell you what the Talmud says from here. The Talmud says that this is an example of what you spoke about before, lying for the sake of a worthy end. But the way you're analyzing it, there's no lie here. It's just leaving out half. Maybe you could learn from here it's appropriate to omit for the sake of an appropriate end. but you wouldn't be able to learn that you could lie for the sake of an appropriate end. The Maharal points this out and asks this question, and he says, you're not reading it right. Actually, the omission in this case is the kind that distorts. Let's see if we can figure that out. Let's try it again. The angel gives her an announcement. In a year's time, Sarah's going to have a child. She laughs and she says, what? Going to have a child? I'm too old and my husband's too old. Because Baruch Hu reports her as saying, I'm not going to have a child because I'm too old. Is there any distortion here? Well, look at it this way. Yeah, I'm quoting the Maharal now. When she says, I'm too old and my husband's too old, what percentage of the blame is she taking?
50%.
50%. There are two obstacles here. My age is an obstacle and his age is an obstacle. Because Baruch Hu quotes her as saying only, I'm too old. How much responsibility is that?
90%.
That's 100%. She didn't say that. She didn't say that. She said 50%. That's a distortion. And that's how you can learn from here that lying is appropriate for certain ends. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that it was a lie. That's a Maharal. So again, I hope you're hearing what it means to read.
But Hashem quoted Sarah such as like her husband is too old, or like how was it? Like, or Abraham said, Sarah said that she's I'm too old. How can we have children?
Right. What did she really say? She really said,
Yeah.
I'm too old and he's too old.
Yeah, but who said? Who lied?
What?
Who lied?
What? Hashem lied.
Hashem lied.
Sure. Because Hashem quotes her as saying only that she's too old. And she didn't say that. Hashem quotes her as saying, I'm the only problem. And she really said there are two problems. I'm a problem and he's a problem. So you can't have a greater authority, right? For that's the right thing to do than that Hashem did it, right? And that's one of the places where you learn that you're allowed to lie. But you have to appreciate, like the Maharal says, you have to appreciate that it's a lie. If you don't appreciate that it's a lie, you don't get the conclusion at all.
But why God even addresses this point? He recently had a child with Hadar.
Well, not so recently, 12 years.
12 years apart.
More than that, he was 86 when he had the child with Hagar. And now he's 99.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
13 years and going from 86 to 99. Right? So, in fact, this is true because in the previous page, Abraham laughs when he hears about it, and he says the same thing. We're both too old. So, but he laughs in joy, and she laughs in disbelief. And that's why it says, she laughed within herself. You notice I changed the translation there. He says she laughed. Here it says, Sarah laughed at herself. No, it says bikirba, within herself. When do you stifle a laugh? When you're embarrassed to be laughing. Otherwise, laughter. We pay people lots and lots of money to make us laugh. Laughter is wonderful, right? We enjoy laughing. And Abraham laughs on the previous page. And he didn't stifle his laugh because he was laughing in joy. So that's how you know that she laughed in disbelief, but she didn't want that to be known, so she kept it within her. Okay, but here's one of the places where you see that you're allowed to lie for the sake, in this case, of peace between husband and wife. Because Baruch Hu doesn't want to inform Abraham that Sarah looks at him as old. He didn't want to put that in his face, so to speak. So he omitted it, even though he distorted what Sarah said. Okay? That's one case. Let's do this. There's another case, as we got into this subject, in Vayechi. This has its own subtleties and implications. After Jacob dies, look on page 287. After Jacob dies, they go and bury him in the land of Israel, and they all come back to Egypt. Now, you know that the brothers sold Joseph into slavery. So they're now afraid that maybe after all this time, 17 years, now that Jacob is dead, Joseph will take revenge. Look at verse 15 at the bottom of page 287. Joseph's brothers perceived their father was dead, and they said, perhaps Joseph will nurse hatred against us, and then he will surely repay us all the evil that we did him. So, how are they going to avoid this? How are they going to protect themselves against Joseph's desire for revenge? They instructed that Joseph be sold. That means they sent a messenger to Joseph with the following message. Your father gave orders before his death, saying, thus shall you say to Joseph, please kindly forgive the spiteful deed of your brothers and their sin that they have done you evil. That's the message that your father, our father, told us to send to you. And now, since we have sent this message that Jacob told us to send, we are adding to it, please forgive the spiteful deed of the servants of your father's God. Okay? Now put yourself in Joseph's shoes. Here comes the messenger. Yeah? Who are you from? Your brothers. Oh, very interesting. Well, tell me, what's the message? And the messenger says, here's the message. Your father Jacob gave instructions that after he dies, you should tell Joseph not to take revenge. And you're Joseph. Are you going to believe this?
No.
Absolutely not. Why not?
It came from the brothers, about the brothers.
If Jacob really had worried about Joseph's taking revenge, then he would have
Said it in person.
said, I'll do it personally. Don't take revenge after I die. This is like off the page. Mamish off the page. Okay. It's definitely a lie. And here's another case where it says the tradition does not fault them. On the contrary, they're trying to make peace, right? But now let's think about the logic. If you and I can figure out that it's a lie, if we can figure out that Joseph will know that it's a lie, can the brothers who are sending the message figure out that Joseph will know it's a lie?
So maybe they purposely did it.
Presumably, they know that Joseph's not dumb. That he's going. Now, why would you send a message, a lie, if you know the person you're sending it to is going to know it's a lie and won't believe it?
They were trying to put forward some kind of effort to show Yosef that they really are sincere, even though he could tell that within the effort they were showing that the statement was not true, but they were putting forward effort.
I think you're right. I think there's something quite psychologically going on here.
If I were them, I would have offered a tribute, a gift, or something to Yosef.
Okay, that's like a bribe. I don't think.
The idea might have been right,
but let's just dwell on what you said. I think this is fairly profound. In other words, they're doing something desperate. He'll see right away that it's a lie and it's desperate. It's like, you say, a drowning man will grasp at a straw floating. Why? Because I'm going down! And it's floating. I won't hold your weight. It's floating. I'm grabbing. Right? And he'll know their desperation. He'll feel their desperation. And in feeling their desperation, maybe that'll move him to take pity on them. So here, again, is the idea that even if the other person will see through what you're doing, that doesn't mean it won't have an effect. And that's what we were saying about Abraham and Sarah. Even though each one will say, I know it's really for both of us, and I know that really it is doing me a favor. But look, the other person doesn't want me to feel it's a favor, doesn't want me to feel indebted. Look how sensitive this person is. Look how much that person cares about me. He wants to do something for me, and yet not portray it as something that I owe them for. I think it's a beautiful gesture, even if you see through it. Now, I'll tell you one more thing here, which is, Rabbi Leff said this. I would never have said such a thing, but it's very hard to avoid. Let's go back again and see what the brothers are worried about. Back on page 287, verse 15. Joseph's brothers perceived this question requires a little knowledge of Sefer Bereshis. Joseph's brothers perceived their father was dead, and they said, perhaps Joseph will nurse hatred against us, and he will surely repay us all the evil that we did him. Now that the father is dead, one brother will take revenge on the other brothers. Do you know any story with that kind of theme, with that kind of sentiment? Good try. No.
One brother against many.
Gideon?
Say again?
Gideon?
I can't hear you.
Gideon in the Navi?
Oh, he didn't love it. No, in the book of Genesis. Where one brother felt that he was disadvantaged or victimized by the other brother, and he said, when my father dies, I'll kill him.
Oh, Esav and
Yaakov. When Jacob gets the blessing, and Esau doesn't get it, he says, Yikvavu Yimei Evel Havi V'Hargo Es Yaakov Achi. The days of mourning for my father are drawing near. I'm going to kill Jacob. So Rabbi Lev said, what you see here is that the brothers were seeing Joseph as Esau. They're suspecting Joseph of the same sentiment of Esau. That's really quite remarkable. And in the Hebrew, it says, Lu Yistamenu Yosef. Yistamenu is exactly the same verb that's used when Esau hates Jacob. So linguistically, the two events are linked to one another. And with this, Rabbi Leff wants to explain something which Rashi talks about. In English, you don't get it because it says just as perhaps. And in Hebrew, there are different words for perhaps. And lu is related to halavai, if you know that word, which you may have heard from Yiddish, which means lu is always for something which you hope will happen. Pen is for something that you hope won't happen. Lu is for something that you hope will happen. And it's a little peculiar that here it says, perhaps we're hoping that Joseph will hate us and want to take revenge on us for the terrible thing that we did. Why would they be happy about that? Why would they be hoping for that?
Because they felt unjustly unpunished this whole time, and if there were to be an act of aggression on Yosef's part, then that would fulfill that punishment that they felt should have been coming their way. Like they still carried the guilt all these years, and if something happened against them, I think they're like, oh yeah, no, we are deserving of this bad thing coming our way because they were still holding on to the guilt.
Yeah, good try. I think you're right. I think you're right, but that's not what that would make it very elevated. No, I think because that doesn't fit together with projecting Esau's character on Joseph. No, yeah.
In that they're portraying themselves as the Yaakov of the story, and that Yosef's the Esau.
That's right. Which means their opposition to Joseph and they're condemning him to death and they're selling him into slavery was justified. It was justified. They were right. They were right all along. He turns out to be an Esau. Of course we should have opposed him. This would save them from the guilt of having sold him into slavery. Retroactively, they could be able to say that they were right. That's the silver lining in the cloud. Yeah. You will suffer. There's no question we'll suffer. We'll have the satisfaction that he's wicked and we're righteous and we were right all along. That's, I think, that's what Rabbi Leff explained. And to me, it's a very daring thing to say. Yeah. But look at the language. Look at the language and the logic. I mean, the words link this to Esau. The concept links it to Esau. It's pretty hard to deny what he's saying. Yeah.
When they initially decided almost to kill him and then send him to the slavery, also they felt jealous and they decided to get rid of him out the anger that he had something that they did not have, and they got rid of him. So in this scenario, it's like I think that could they be like reverse psychology, just portraying what they would have done if they were on the place of Joseph, because they're portraying their negative attributes, how they once got rid of the brothers they hate. Now he will get rid of the brothers he hate.
I don't know. I don't know if I follow all the logic there. Let's see.
They
wanted to get rid of him, And now he,
wickedness of their character, they assume that he has the same wicked characteristics such as revenge.
but you mean it subconsciously now. In other words, they're not thinking he's just like us. They're thinking he's wicked in this way.
So they're projecting.
They're projecting. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, I hear that. Yeah. Now, having said all of that, let me just give you the last crowning glory. What does Joseph say to them? Joseph says on page 289, verse 19, Joseph said to them, now see if you can get this. Fear not, for am I instead of God? Although you intended me harm, God intended it for good, in order to accomplish, as this day, that a vast people be kept alive. I'm not going to take revenge. Why not? Well, let's read the whole statement again. Fear not, for am I instead of God? Although you intended me harm, God have intended it for good, in order to accomplish, as clear as this day, that a vast people be kept alive. Do you hear a little bit of a kvetch here?
Yes.
Where?
Although you intended it.
Yeah, what has that got to do with answering the question? The question was, are you going to take revenge? The answer is, everything that happened to me was good. I didn't suffer in any way. You didn't hurt me in any way. Why should I take revenge? That's the answer. What's the, although you intended to do me harm? What's that doing there? That's not part of the explanation of why he's not going to take revenge.
It is, I would say.
Why?
He's addressing the elephant in the room. He's saying, yo, you guys tried to do me harm.
Right.
And I would garner to say even that they succeeded. I mean, he went through a lot of pain and suffering as a slave for many years and then being in prison for many years. Like, that can't have been all sunshine and rainbows. He went through some struggles and troubles and trials and tribulations throughout the journey. Like, he ended up in a pretty rough spot because of what his brothers did to him.
Okay.
And although they intended him harm, he addresses the fact that they tried to harm him, and by addressing it, he's able to get it out of the way, so it's something open and discussed and not still something that could be hidden and maybe he'll do something about. Because he could say, oh yeah, it was all God, everything's totally fine, while harboring the doubt inside, the anger inside. He's like, no, guys, you done goofed, you tried to hurt me, but guess what? It's okay, because it all turned out good.
But
He's addressing what, they are worried that he's going to take revenge against them because they harmed him. So he's conceding that, yes, you guys harmed me. Let's get that out there. You harmed me. But it was all good. Not just saying it's all good.
okay, let me replay to you what you said. You used two different phraseologies, two different vocabularies. Part of the time you said, you tried to hurt me. And part of the time you said, you succeeded in hurting me. You said both of those things.
I would take back the tried and stick with only succeed.
Right, now look at the words and see if you can find it.
It only says intended.
It only says intended, and after that it says, but everything was good.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not putting in the fact that he actually got hurt. He's only mentioning their intent to hurt him. And since his explanation of why he's not going to take revenge is, you didn't succeed in hurting me, the question is, why put in that introduction? And the answer is that there are two dimensions in life. There's your dimension with respect to other people, and your dimension with respect to God. We call it ben olam l'mokom, ben olam l'chavero. Of course, God is never out of the picture when you're interacting with other people. God is the framework within which you're interacting with other people. But sometimes what you do has only relevance to your relationship to God, and sometimes it also has relevance to other people. You're worried about my taking revenge on you. That's between you and me. Between you and me, nothing there. Everything was good. But there is the element between you and God. I can't forgive you for that. I'm not in charge of that. You still owe that. You still have to do something about that. I think it's very clear in the verse. And the tradition says that thousands of years later, the 10 people who were 10 great tzaddikim were killed by the Romans was partly because of what the brothers did, which means they never fixed it. They never really fixed it between them and God. and therefore the transgression stayed and had effect a long time later. That's these little words in Joseph's speech, that whole picture. You wanted to say something? You wanted to say something, yeah?
I wanted to say that when he said, "You intended me hard," is like, no, it's not like you did right sin. Do not justify yourself for me sending into Egypt and ended up good. No, you intended harm, but like, it's okay. But you intended harm. Like,
I think so, right. In other words, you're not guilt-free.
yeah.
You're not guilt-free. No. You deserve something. Just, I'm not going to do it because I didn't get any harm from it. It's interesting how you could take an implication from here. If you had succeeded in hurting me, I didn't think of this before. I've taught this 100 times. If you had succeeded in hurting me from his words, then it would have been justified for me to take revenge. He's not saying that he would have, but it would have been justified. That's what his words say. But since you didn't do me any harm, it's not justified. That in itself could have implications. I didn't think of that before. I have to think about it. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.